Selling a property from out of state. Hey guys, it's Brad from probateresource.com. At Probate Resource, we're a real estate solutions company. We specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties specifically, but we do buy houses for other reasons other than probate and inheritance. So we're based out of Metro Atlanta, but we buy houses really all over the place. And today I want to talk about selling a property from out of state. We've actually bought many properties from out of state sellers. And it does come with a few caveats or a few little issues that you want to pay attention to. If you have a property that you're selling from out of state, whether you owned it and you've moved out of state, or maybe this is a property you've inherited, right? We do, obviously, because I specialize in probate and inheritance, we deal with people who've inherited a property from out of state and they want to sell this property. So what do you do when you want to sell this property? Well, first of all, is the property vacant or is it occupied? If it's vacant, that's great. If it's occupied, then you probably want to figure out, maybe this is a rental property, in which case you're going to probably want to notify your tenants that you're selling the property. Now, we've had instances where we've purchased houses where the tenants were not notified that we bought it, but in most cases, we do like to notify the tenant that it's being purchased. Also, if you have a tenant in place and there is not a written lease agreement in place, I'm personally less likely to want to buy that property without the tenant knowing, because typically if there's not a lease in place, I'm going to need the tenant to sign some documents. We call it a tenant estoppel agreement. It's basically an agreement signed between me, the buyer, you, the seller, and the tenant, sort of agreeing to the terms of the lease or the rental terms, right? The amount of rent, whether there is or is not a security deposit due, when's the end of the tenancy, that sort of thing, if there's not a written lease agreement in place. If you're going to sell the property from out of state, let's assume it's vacant. So let's go back to the vacant piece. So it's out of state, whether you've inherited this property, you own this property, whatever. You're going to want to make sure you have some boots on the ground in that market, whether that's a neighbor or a family friend or a family member or someone. You really want to make sure you have boots on the ground, especially if you want to do all this remotely and you don't want to mess with the property. Now, if you're okay with driving into town or flying into town or whatever in order to sell this property, that's one thing. But many cases, a lot of the people that reach out to us that want to sell this property, they don't really want to be burdened with this property, right? They don't want to come into town. They don't want to mess with it. So make sure you have boots on the ground in that area. Sometimes we've had neighbors come meet us and give us a key to the property or let us in. I would encourage you, if at all possible, to put a lockbox on the property if it's vacant and put the keys or some way to access those keys in that lockbox. I know that it sounds good to give the keys to the neighbor or whatever, but you have to think that maybe the neighbor's not always there. And what if someone needs to go see the property and the neighbor's gone for the day? For instance, sometimes we'll have to send a contractor over to the property just to do a walkthrough of it, one of our contractors, just to take a look at it and, kind of give us a bid or an estimate on whatever specific job they might be doing in that property might be. And, the contractor's typically working until 5 o'clock every day because they have a family and stuff, and they're going home at 5 o'clock and they're going home to hang out with their family. And you gave the key to your neighbor and your neighbor's gone all day. Maybe they had a doctor's appointment and a bunch of errands to run and the neighbor's gone all day. And my contractors are very, very busy and they need to go see the house and they can't get in the house because the neighbor has the key. That's why a lockbox is important. So make sure you can go buy it, or you can go have the neighbor go buy it. They cost about $30. You can get a lockbox from Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, whatever local hardware store. And it's a combination box and it can hang on the doorknob or wherever really you want to hang it. And it locks into place and you can put the keys in it. It has a combination. You can set the combination to whatever you want to set it to. And that way, you know that the property, someone has access to the property at all times. And the keys are in a lockbox. So no random Joe can come fish around and look for a key under a rock. Sometimes people don't want to put a lockbox on the house, but they're okay putting a key under a rock outside. Always seemed kind of crazy to me. Or if you're selling the house to us, we'll just go put one of our lock boxes on the property. And if for some reason or another the deal doesn't work out or whatever, right? In most cases, if you're doing a deal with my company, it's going to work out. It's going to go through. But if it doesn't for some reason, we'll take the lockbox off the property and remove it. But we'd be glad to put one on there. We have tons of them. It's like I invest in lockboxes. They're like disposable to us. Make sure you have some boots on the ground, someone who can, you want to make sure somebody's checking on the property because, and the reason I say that is because a lot of times homeowners insurance policies actually have a clause in there, a vacancy clause, and you need to read your policy to understand the time frame, but a lot of times it's 2 weeks. If the property's being is going to be vacant for more than 2 weeks, and any damage occurs during a period of vacancy, a lot of times the insurance company will not honor the claim because there is that vacant out clause in that policy. So make sure you're checking your policy and just make sure you have someone checking on that property on a regular basis and that they can vouch for the fact that they've checked on it. Okay, so if you're going to sell this property, the first thing you probably want to do actually is figure out whether you're going to sell the property with an agent or you're going to sell it to an investor. And selling with an agent, the agent could be your boots on the ground, the person who's keeping track of the property. If you do have a property in Georgia that you're looking to sell, I'm a licensed agent in the state of Georgia. I'd be happy to help you list that property, put it out for sale in the state of Georgia. But if not, if you're in another state, I actually have a network of realtors I work with all over the country. I'd be happy to put you in touch with one of them as well. So just reach out to us on our website, fill out the form, and we'll get you in touch with someone. If you're going to sell through an agent, a lot of times your agent, like I said, can help you do lots of things. And you're probably going to want to figure out a way to get keys to the agent, whether they're there or not. But if you're going to sell to an investor, a lot of times investors are probably going to make your life actually a little bit easier because more than likely they're just going to close very quickly. They're going to make you a quick, fast cash offer. They're going to buy it with no BS. You pretty much know, I don't want to say 100% certain because a lot of investors will put a due diligence period in their contract. If we're buying your house, there is an option where we can buy your house with no due diligence, which means we sign on the dotted line. That means we're buying the house. Otherwise, you get a penalty of money that if for some reason I back out, you get my earnest money deposit that I put down if I were to back out for any reason. Because once due diligence is up and you back out, like the earnest money goes to the seller. So if you're selling to us, that's probably not going to happen. But some other investors in many cases, they might back out during due diligence period. So make sure that you're also paying attention to the contract. I have other videos about that, about paying attention to how long the due diligence period is so that they're not, kind of dragging this thing out for a long time. But if the investor makes you an offer with no due diligence, I mean, chances are they're probably going to buy the property, in which case, you can give them the keys or whatever and, show up to closing. You really don't even have to show up to closing. And that's my next point. You can likely do everything remotely. And what I mean by that is a lot of times most people don't realize this. They're like, oh, well, I need to come to closing. And we're like, no, you don't actually need to come to closing. We can set up a notary and have a notary meet you wherever to sell the house. There is a cost for that. Nowadays with inflation and everything, I think a notary fee is about $200 or something, I think is what a mobile notary fee. But literally, I've done mobile notary closings. For instance, last year I was at the beach on vacation and I met the notary one day, down the street from our beach house that we were staying at for the week. And I met him, at a restaurant and we just signed the closing documents there and I sold a house while I was out of town. And the notary just sends the copies of the documents back to the closing attorney or the title company. And then they just FedEx the originals overnight back to the title company or the closing attorney. Now, the downside of doing a remote closing is that typically most title companies and or closing attorneys, I mentioned attorneys because I'm in Georgia, we use a closing attorney to do our closings. They can't fund the transaction until the original documents are back in their possession, which typically means the following day. So if you sign with a notary today, you're not going to get your money until tomorrow whenever the documents come back and the title company or closing attorney has those documents in their possession. Then they will release the funds and go ahead and close and fund the deal. So that's kind of one downside to that, but that's minor inconvenience, I would say. But you can use a mobile notary to sign all the documents and not have to show up for closing. So if you are selling a property from out of state, there's easy ways to do it, and it's not as hard as you think. And if you want to talk to us about maybe buying your out-of-state property, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Again, I'm Brad with probateresource.com. Just like I say there, probateresource.com. You can go to our website. Also, there's a link below. You can fill out the form, and a member of our team will be in contact with you as soon as possible, and we'd love to talk to you about buying your property. So thanks again for checking out this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.